It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to our continuation of Series 19. This one looking at the players of the 2023 Asian Cup. This episode is part 2 of the players of Tajikistan. Final selections and starter prediction. Here we go. Hello, we are back for part 2 of our mediacast on the players of the 2023 Asian Cup. The final roster is released and we are looking at Tajikistan selections. In part 1, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad. That was based mostly on their participation, usually over the past 2 years, but we have considered other factors as well. And today we review that list now that the final squads have been announced. And we promised to point out any surprises, any notable non-selections, surprise inclusions, and new players. And we also said that we would cover any injuries. And we will do those things as we go through the list again. And at the end, for a bit of fun, we'll also boldly predict our starting lineup in the Spotlight Review. Let's jump right in. And we begin with the manager, and the manager has not changed, so we don't expect that's going to change. We're going to call him a definite selection, manager Pitar Surgut. Let's take a look at the goalkeepers, and back when we compiled the list, we had 3 likely candidates in Rustam Yatimov and Mukradin Kasanov and Daler Barilov. And then we had 3 possible candidates, Safarmid Gaforov, Yusupov, and Kyrgyz Boev. And I am going quickly through those because none of them made it. It was the 3 likely candidates that made it. We did have Rustamov as a likely candidate, even though he started 14 of their 16 games. It was because he wasn't selected for the last 2 matches, which caused us a bit of concern. But he was selected for the squad. We think he's probably going to be the starter. Mukradin Kasanov then selected, and Daler Baratov, all 3 of those likely candidates. So very much as expected there. Let's move on to the central midfield. And we had 2 definite candidates in Zwar Juraboev and Vakdat Kananov. We had 1 likely candidate in Mekrubon Karimov, and then 4 possible candidates, Shiovich Asrorov, Kolmarod Nazarov, Sodikjon Kurbanov, and Alijon Karomatalozoda. I probably offended Tajikistan people with those names, but we are moving along here. Our 2 definite candidates were Juraboev were selected, as well as the other one, Vakdat Kananov. Both of those selected. The likely candidate, Mekrubon Karimov, was not selected, so a bit of a surprise there. And 2 of the possible candidates were selected because they usually bring 5. They're only bringing 4, actually, and teams are allowed to bring 26 players. So a bit of a surprise here that they're only bringing 4. Kolmarod Nazarov is one of them, and Sodikjon Kurbanov the other. So the likely candidate, Karimov, and the 2 possible candidates, Astrorov and Karomatulzoda, none of those selected. We also had actually 4 possible but unlikely candidates and 1 seemingly off the squad, but we're not going to mention any of those unless they're selected, and I don't think we mentioned them in the previous podcast either because they're not on the list. Let's move over to the left backs and see what we had. We had Aklam Nazarov and Tabrizi Islamov, both as likely candidates. Again, Nazarov missing the last 2 games, but that, as we said in the podcast, we didn't really think it meant the manager was reconsidering these players. So turns out that that's not the case, because both of them were selected, Tabrizi Islamov and Akhtam Nazarov. On the right side, we had one definite player, and then a couple of players who seemed to be off the squad. I think we presented only the definite player, Manu Safarov, and he was selected for the squad. Neither of the others were selected, so just as well we didn't mention them. Let's move on to midfield now. And in the defensive midfield, players coded as defensive midfielders, we had Amirbek Juraboev as a definite candidate, and then we had Murad Ali Aknazarov as a possible candidate. Only the definite candidate there made it, Amirbek Juraboev, and Aknazarov left off the squad. I should have said right at the beginning that they did make a preliminary squad of 27 players, and they're allowed to bring 26. So we're going to see one player cut from the final cut here. We haven't reached that player yet. Okay, let's take a look at central midfielders. And we had a definite candidate in Aizoni Panishanbe. We had he was the likely candidate, Panishanbe. The definite candidate was Parvidzon Umarbayev. Anyway, both of them made it, so we'll say that now and deal with the possible candidate in a second. So Umarbayev and Panishanbe both selected. And the possible candidate was Ruslan Kaloev, and he also was selected for the squad, brand new to the squad, the 20-year-old. And that's it for central midfielders. So again, things going very much as expected here. Left midfield, we had not many candidates are coded this way anymore, but we did have one at the possible level, and it was Dalar Imam Nazarov, and he was selected for the squad, Dalar Imam Nazarov. So we put him on the list. We didn't have any players coded as right midfielders. So we moved to the upper quadrant of the field, left wingers, left attacking midfielders, and possibly left forwards. So we had one candidate just at the possible level here. It was Vasidin Safarov. And then we had one player at the possible but unlikely level. I won't mention him because he was not selected. However, we do have one player added to the squad, the only player who was not on our list, and that is Amadoni Kamalov. So I'll give a bit of a biography on him. He is just 20 years old and got his first caps just recently, so that's why he wasn't on our list. But he did play 3 of their 4 games, 2 of them the November World Cup qualifiers, and 2 of them friendlies very recently. So he plays for Istiklal in Tajikistan, I should say, probably the biggest club in Tajikistan there. But he basically, almost like he was sent for training in Spain with very small, obscure clubs in Spain. It was Rayo Majadahonda youth club in Spain, and then he actually played for a senior team, Paracuelos, in Spain. I gotta say, that wasn't even on my very long list of club teams, so a very obscure club. Nevertheless, he's back with Istiklal in Tajikistan, and as we said, started 3 of the 4 recent games. So we will talk about him in the spotlight review to see if we think he's going to be a starter. Anyway, going back to the left wingers we had on the list, Vesadin Safarov was selected for the squad, but the possible but unlikely player, as I said, was not. So that's it for left wingers. Over to the right wing, where we had one definite candidate in Mukhamadzon Rakimov as a definite candidate. And we had a possible but unlikely and a seemingly off the squad there. We didn't put them on the list before, and we didn't need to because they are not selected. However, Rakimov is selected for the squad, our definite candidate. And let's move upfield to the forward line. We include attacking midfielders in the forward line, and we have Alisher Zalilov and Shervoni Mabatshoev, both as likely candidates we had. And then we had two possible candidates as well, Alisha Shurkarov and Alidzoni Aini. And all three, hang on, I'm seeing four on my list there. Oh, yes, we also had Abu Bakr Suleimanov as a possible candidate. Okay, well, four of the five then made it. So our two likely candidates, Alisher Zalilov and Shervoni Mabatshoev, both of them selected for the squad. And then two of the three possible candidates also selected. Sorry, I've got my graphics all wrong. Okay, so those two likely candidates selected, and the possible candidates were Alisher Shukarov and Alidzoni Aini. Both of those selected, but Abu Bakr Suleimanov not selected for the squad. Okay, we had secondary strikers as well. We had just one likely candidate here in Komron Tursunov, and yes, we considered him likely, but the only real surprise here is that he was not selected. He actually is the player that was selected for the preliminary squad and didn't make the final cut. So Komron Tursunov ultimately not selected for the squad. Let's go to forwards, and the big news really for Tajikistan, which we did know, we knew that Manuchaka Zazilov, oh my God, my tongue has stopped working. Manuchaka Zalilov, the star forward for them, really. And we did say in the part one of the podcast that he was taken to a hospital in Moscow with a serious illness. I tried to get more information on that, but that's all that seems to be known. And so he is off the squad. That's the big news. So a real shocker there in Manuchaka Zalilov being off the squad. But as I say, we did have advance notice of that. So a bad blow for Tajikistan there. The likely candidate was Sharon Samiev and Nuruddin Kamrakulov, both of those likely candidates. We also had two possible candidates in Muhammad Ali Azizboev and Rustam Swarov. So all four of those selected. So the two likely candidates, Sharon Samiev and Nuruddin Kamrakulov, and then Muhammad Ali Azizboev and Ruslam Swarov. And we have something interesting to say about that in the Spotlight review, which actually we're heading straight towards. Because we are finished going through the squad and seeing what the selections were. So not many surprises for Tajikistan, and we expected that too from a small squad, that they would be pretty predictable. So let's move on then to the Spotlight review, where we try to predict the starters for the Cup. And I think actually for Tajikistan, it will be. They seem to kind of The philosophy seems to be put the same players on the field in the same formation and get them used to working with each other together. I like that philosophy, and that seems to be what they're doing. So it's a fairly predictable lineup. Anyway, manager Pitar Surgut, we consider a starter. In other words, he won't be dismissed before the Cup. Rostam Yatimov, despite missing the last two games, and this is true of several of the players that we worried about missing the last two games, that it wasn't an alarm of the manager suddenly changing the squad. It was probably just giving some of the secondary players a bit of field time. So Rostam Yatimov, we think is going to be the starting keeper. We're quite confident about that. If you're looking at the screen, we put it in green highlights if we're confident, and blue highlights if we're, let's say, 75% sure. We think it's likely, but we're not dead sure. The two central defenders are also in green. We think it's definitely Dzwar Zuraboev, paired with Vakdat Kanonov. Quite confident they're going to be the starters. Again, we're kind of basing this on the participation analysis we did over the past 2 years, plus the additional information of the four games that they've played since. Left back, Akhtam Nazarov, we think is a definite starter there. We're going to be able to fairly accurately predict the starting lineup, we think, here. Right back, Manu Checker Safarov, we're very confident he'll be the starter. We even think that they will have a three-man central midfield, and that we can predict the three players in it. So Amirbek Juraboev, Esoni Panshambi, and Parvidzon Umarbayev. We're confident all three of them are going to start. The only area where we're not that confident is the left wing and perhaps the right wing. The left wing, we think it's going to be Alisher, the attacking midfielder, Alisher Zalilov. However, we're not fully confident of that, so we have it in a blue highlight. We think it's likely. And on the right wing, well, the newcomer, Amadoni Kamalov, has started 3 of the 4 games, and we didn't really see that strong a candidate in that position. So we are going to boldly predict that it is going to be Kamalov as the starter, new though he is, and young as well. For the forwards, of course, Zalilov is out, which is terrible. We'll put him in the special mention category here. So we think the starter is going to be neither of the likely candidates that we had. Rather, we think it's going to be Swarov, and that's really based on the fact that he has been starting over the past few games, and we think that they're practicing as a team with the squad that they will field. So not just giving him experience, but actually planning on Swarov as the starter there. So that is it, the spotlight review, and we have now finished both parts, so the creation of the squad and then the look at the selections for Tajikistan. And we hope that knowing the players a little better will help you enjoy watching their games and enjoy the tournament a bit more in general. We'd like to thank Naver Avacham and Pixabay for the wonderful music you hear in this mediacast. The title is called Arabic Trap.